All right, Victoria.
Good morning, good day. This is CreateAWorld, Friday, January 26th, 2024, our first collaborating group of the year. We'd like to welcome you to our conversation today. We are a team of collaborators in CreateAWorld who use the principles of Tantra Maat to talk about what is rising in our lives and what gives us the strength, stamina, capacity to be on behalf of all, to move in our greater wholeness, and to be with what is coming into existence and what is leaving our existence. And this is a time today for our conversation to be with what we've been paying attention to over this month of January, this beginning of 2024. And Electra, can you just kind of give us a synopsis of what we've been paying attention to?
I would love to. Thank you, dear. On the first Friday of the month, Tantra Deb and I talked about we shall not be sacrificed. And I think this speaks to a real change in how women particularly come to the world. The next Friday, Janice and
Kamakshi Heart.
Okay, Kamachi Heart. I'm really sorry for the mispronunciation. But they were talking how nature can guide us and how we can learn from nature. And that seems to be a lot of the conversation because people are beginning to pay attention to being one with nature, not as a separate thing on earth. And last week, Liz and Melissa's talked about finding stillness. And so the thread seems to be the nature is coming back to us and we're claiming our own way to be in it, to be ourselves. No more sacrificing of who we came here to be, to get along. Better to stand in our own truth.
Go ahead and say a little bit about yourself, Electra.
Okay.
First, right now.
I like to have my fingers in several pies. So I am. I'm the director of the Language of Consciousness Institute, which was established to support people in learning to use the language of creation templates in their lives. If you have access to them, do not treat them like it's just a course that you've taken, because they can make the difference in creating the life that you crave. And you have to do it. There's no such thing as I took the course. So anyway, I love that work because we are really, this year, we're unpacking template 4, going deeper and deeper into our nature of being and how we bring in who we came here to be. We're also going to discuss You as the Mind of Creation, which is Tantra's latest book. And that's going to take us through the year. Actually, both of them will take us through the year. I have my own company, which is For You, By You, With You, and also known as electroporzell.com. And in that, I do that. I support you, I teach you, and I guide you. Next. Okay.
I'll go next.
Yes.
I'm Elizabeth Geyer, and I have the privilege of working with Electra Porzell in the Language of Consciousness Institute. And yes, we are moving into unpacking more of our nature and our being and who we are being this year. And I have to say, it's created quite the I'm going to use the word wallop. I mean, it's like being at the end of the rope, when the rope's going around and around. and that's in a good way, really in a good way. I came into the year with basically a clean slate. It's like I had the analogy yesterday that creation has this huge whiteboard, and creation just took the eraser and just erased everything. And it came in, the year came in just sparkling, brand new. There's just a brand new everything. So I'm really, really excited about this work. And then continuing on this year with my company with Nurturing Transformation, which is a space where children and adults can come for assistance in whatever they need. I coach children uh, academically and also um, emotionally to support their well-being as they maneuver their way into the school system. And then also, I've begun working with adults and working with the language of creation templates. So it's very, very exciting. So who else?
I'll go next because I can be interactive, interrelated, and symbiotic with I'm the source of the creation templates. They came to me prior to 2013, and they were talked about as essential for these times we're presently in. The part I want to share is that I have been in a vision since I was 19 years old, which is really an amazing thing. I have really been learning to appreciate. I've had a heart condition for the last few weeks, and having to be still by yourself and not get your blood pressure roaring out of sight, by its nature, produces deep introspection. And I really appreciate that from the age of 19, I was given the path, and by a voice, actually, and that said, take good care of my people. I'll never tell you which one, but you need touch only one, which is actually how CreateAWorld was born, that same voice. But there's three dynamics that were going to be evidence for the emergence, because a psychic, a seer, can see the future, but we're not the one that forces the future. We see the future, but humanity, we have to align with the future that works on behalf of life, the psyche of the soul consciousness, the soul journey of humanity. So there was one thing I didn't think I would ever be able to do, because the entrenched personality of trauma is so entrenched. It's like having a million octopus wound into your nervous system and your brain and your perception and everything. But I just kept doing building blocks, particularly starting in 2014. I just did building blocks to see if human beings were responding to certain emergent principles, ways of being, transparency, authenticity, intimacy, affinity, vulnerability, their states of being. And there was a response, and a community was born, but not an organized community. It's a community of gathering, not a community of necessarily form. Like today, whoever's listening, you're a part of that community because you're on this call with us. But the one thing I never thought was that there would be a point of emergence where human beings could start hearing themselves right, where they could start not referencing their lives as trauma, but referencing their life as being part of a greater whole, being what I call source-based beings. I was just working on it this morning. I mean, I never do curriculum. Deb and Electra are good at that. I think Janice might be too, not me. And I've been very carefully sculpting the curriculum for the Magician of Self that starts February 1st, because now I can bring all the components that I've introduced over, 57 years. I can bring all those components in because people can hear. People are able now. we give human beings such a bad rap about something's wrong with them that they can't hear, or something's wrong. No, something was wrong, but it's been wrong for all of humanity, not for individuals. And those of us suffering because we couldn't find the worlds we love, those of us suffering because we hate the world we're in. We're all the same species in just different parts of the kaleidoscope. So I just wanted to take today, because it starts February 1st. Actually, it starts February 14th, but Valentine's Day, which I didn't know, which I found very exciting. And this time, the Institute and the templates will be tandem with the magician of self, and so they can support the underpinnings of the human mind. I also want to say something about template 4 that didn't get said. It isn't about just our nature of being. It's template 4 is about the nature of what we hold to be real as a being. And we're in an amazing tipping point time, because it's like a Daniel in the lion's den time. He did not hold it to be real that the lions were going to eat him. And the lions didn't eat him because it just wasn't his reality. So we're right at an emergent point where, and please don't get psychological on me, but where human beings can get in touch with the reality they hold to be real. We could always get in touch with the thought of it. It didn't mean we could get in touch with the matrix of it, the actuality of it. And that's starting to be emergent. So when I say awaken your being, it has multiple components. We'll be using sacred geometry. I've asked Marshall from Cosmotrometry to come do a class with me. I've asked Asa to come do a class with me, because there's a different level of learning human beings are in. And if Deb was here, Deb has the vital psyche. She's sick today. But she wrote her dissertation on what would it be like if psychiatry and psychology supported the trauma, the non-trauma-based personality, actually gave the personality that was there before trauma set in a chance to rise. So we're in an extraordinary moment in time. And it wasn't that I didn't think I'd live to see it. I didn't think humanity was ready yet. But the lovely things about so much going out of existence is it creates a lot of room for that which is new to come into existence. It's called evolution. All right, I'm complete. Thanks.
Oh, I want to go next. I'm Victoria McMahon of Vibrant Soul Coaching. And Vibrant Soul Coaching comes from the idea that you mentioned about we're like in this octopus kind of entanglement, but the octopus is a sentient being beyond what we ever knew. And the research is showing how sentience can guide us. And that's how I work with people to remember who they are, is through that connection to the sentience. Like we talked about with nature earlier with Electra, how we have registers for how we're a part of nature and how nature wants to interact with us, how creation wants to be right beside us on our journeys, and that it's all about the experience that we're in rather than getting somewhere or fixing something, like Tantra was saying. So I feel like we're kind of weaving this conversation today to look at what are the ways in which we interact in ourselves and in the world, and the choices that help us deepen that connection to those interactions, like being the magician of ourselves, using the templates to connect more deeply. I know for sure, because I started those templates with Deb on a telephone group call before 2013, somewhere right in that area where they were just becoming available. And I've been using them all these years. And while it may seem like it didn't happen until now, they were weaving in the nature of my being all these years. And now I'm really seeing how my capacity to interact with the templates is coming forward too. And I look forward to the possibility of using them in the people that interact with me, because I know the power and potency. So who's next?
the beauty of the threading. Yes, to everything that everyone has shared, and the lens that really rises for me is the movement, is the integral movement, is the Tai Chi, the Qigong, and blending my own inner work with the templates in how I express, how I unleash my own potential. And that's my company. And it's ultimately supporting our fullness of being and really relating to the Tai Chi of it. You know, it is that lens of potentiality, of dualistic, of good, bad, right, wrong. And it's more than that. It's all of it together. So how do I invite that operation of being in the balance with vitality and vibrancy? That's 2024 for me. So I'm excited.
So I'm Janice Cronetti, with the Fertile Voice, and that is all about helping people reclaim their stories in a way that empowers them. The last year or two for me has been primarily about venturing into the world of solo theater. I've been an actor for 40 years. But I started, I wrote and performed, and am now taking around a one-woman show called My Year of Saying No. I'll be back in LA at the end of March to perform for the LA Women's Theater Festival. But my goal with that work and with the Fertile Voice is to help people reclaim their own voice. We get silenced by a lot of things, and in our silence, sometimes silence is a good thing, but sometimes silence is a result of disconnecting from who we're really meant to be. And we certainly know that in our current culture, we have varying power dynamics across groups. And we have a lot of people in a lot of groups whose voices don't always get heard. And so the goal really is to make room for everyone to tell their story, and for people to discover the potency in who they are by exploring their own story. I also have a lot of interest and have done a lot of work with coaching. I've coached a lot in the educational system, continuing to do some of that work. But I have a real interest in helping people reclaim their emotions, because I think one of the things that became very clear to me as we went through not only the pandemic itself, but sort of the everything that happened as a result of that is we need more space as human beings to be able to be in our emotion and recognize that emotions are actually not something to be managed or something to be stuffed down or something to be ignored, but something to be listened to, because they have information that is critical for us. And the more that we can dance with those emotions in a way that honors them, the more we can gain wisdom from experiences of significant emotion, whether we classify it as good or bad. I would argue that emotion is neither, but it is. Out past all right and wrongdoing is a field. I will meet you there. And so that's what I'm about in 2024.
I'm actually going to jump in because there's a couple of things I want to add from the prophetics. So as of January 30th, I will have done 137 prophetics. For years, I only did 100. Last year, I did 125. And I may cry. And it's very profound because it's a collective group of human beings taking time to what we call feed the field with their direct link with creation. What can I say? and but the addendum to something Electra said, and actually several of you pieces of it. There's some fascinating things that revealed an emergent consciousness in the prophetics, that there is an emergent consciousness of humanity going on. Because I only knew maybe at most a third, which is also fascinating to me. And last year I noticed there were just very few souls in the collective soul that weren't emergent into what I call paradise, or that which goes past trauma is actually an easy way to say it, that which exists past trauma. But this year, one of the things that was fascinating is that the animals, the nature thing, particularly animals, because I was used to a framework, and I think we all are, where we look it up on Google or Bing now for me, and we find the symbol of the animal, and then we apply it to ourselves, and then we use the symbol as guidance. What was present in these prophetics where the animal showed up it was actually a direct link with the soul of the animal itself. Very indigenous, very primordial, very original. I was just blown away by it, absolutely blown away. The other thing is the 3 years before this, to tag onto Janice, there was really a warning 3 years ago. And the warning was develop a healthy emotional palate. In other words, get a relationship with your emotions that work. And 2 years ago, the theme, because they are thematic, there is a soul cultural theme in them. And 2 years ago, it was about everything will be ruled by the emotions now. Everything. Which is the sentience, the emotions. The emotions as a sentient being is very different than emotions as a reactive being. How we relate to them is black and white. I mean, really black and white. In this past year, I didn't understand it till these prophetics, and actually one of our topics, which was it said no more usury. And so on my podcast, Out Past the Edge, when all this came down 2 hours after one of my beloveds died, and I'd been with her in my soul sharing all the way until her passing out of flesh into spirit, it would seem that part of me went with her and is having a hard time getting back here, and or has been having a hard time getting back here. But out of that, I did a podcast on No More Sacrifice, and it was really more, what you hear in everybody speaking is, what if we actually are on the verge of no more sacrificing ourselves for trauma? What if we're on the verge of it? Because trauma is an addiction. It's an addiction. What if we really are on the edge of it? And then just the real emotion around, we started CreateAWorld a while back, but we started it because it feeds the field. We're not starting it to promote ourselves, but to feed a field. And so in the meantime, a kind of symbiotic relationship occurs because we're all in the multi-fractals of a whole system response. So I just wanted to bring those things forward in this conversation because, boy, Lori, talk about potential. I don't think it can be stopped now. I'm going to cry. I really don't think it can be stopped now. It can be slowed down and it can be stalled, but almost all of us that wish we could have what we remember come back into existence, something just got stalled. It didn't get killed. It just got stalled. And as in the creation templates, it's carried in each and every one of us. And also all of the practitioners on this call, and Deb is not here right now, we practice. We don't pontificate. my least favorite word. We actually hold to our own evolution and our own emergence and our own ability to be with another in the field. We really, really work on it. And now there are others that seem to want to be at work on themselves, not on their psychology, but on themselves, underneath whatever the modality is. You know, even if you're dealing with trauma, there's this lust for reawakening beyond anything I could have imagined. And yet it's what I started with when I was 19 years old. So a 77-year-old is a pretty happy camper right at this moment. Thanks for having me share.
Go ahead, Laurie.
Sorry, Victoria, just quickly, you know, threading in Janice and your stories telling and using your voice. You know, I've been with that, like, what are stories? Because very much like what Tantra you're saying about the trauma, it can be that same story over and over and over and over. And I find with CreateAWorld and turning the story into conversation, it's like stories are endless and you can change your story at any time. And being in the fullness of body, emotion, mind, thought, heart, you know, the whole totality of us, it offers that space to let that story be like a little bit different and maybe into the reality you wish to create or wish to remember. And wow, I'm in that place too. So thanks for, you know, bringing me full circle. I appreciate it.
I'm so glad you went first before me because you informed another piece of what I've been listening to. And that's the stories of the people who come and listen to the stories that we have in conversation. Those of you out there that are interested in being in conversation with us. And I'm curious about all your stories. And you know, maybe it's even an invitation to come and be and share your story with one of us. Because the more stories that get conversationed, the more we expand our capacity as humanity to really to really work with those stalls and move beyond them. And I know the old, it takes a village. I know it's kind of cliched, but it's more than it takes a village now for me. Like that was a good starting point. And now how we are in conversation in our true beingness beyond the trauma. I think that it takes a village for me was more trauma laden. And I don't know what the next verbiage is, but it's the beyond trauma, sharing our stories in conversation. And I keep feeling this sense of the circle and how 2024 for me is about creating sacred circles for people to be in their story beyond trauma. So I'm just interweaving that and wondering how that juices the rest of you guys. What would you say?
I think it's a fantastic idea. What appears for me is we're growing the matrix of who we are as human beings. It's almost as if the trauma made it very tight, very restricted and compressed, and human beings didn't have enough movement, enough flow in their systems to be able to get out of that. And what is happening now is those matrices are expanding. And our view of what we are is shifting. like the idea of emotions. Emotions are intelligences that we work with to inform us about different ways to inform us of what's going on, what we're present to. And I've done a lot lately. I listened to Robert Temple talk about the plasma clouds that are between Earth and the moon. And he said they are intelligences. So I started having a conversation with him, one intelligence to the other. And it's a different orientation. When I say my body is an intelligence that is communicating with my spirit, the emotions are intelligences. And it just for me changed my orientation, because it's a respect for this culture has not really liked anything to do with bodies for a long time. And if you were a body worker in one way or another, whether you were a massage therapist, a cranial sacral therapist, a yoga teacher, a Tai Chi teacher, you're kind of low on the value system of the society. And when I shifted and said, these are intelligences that are communicating to me through my sentience, through what I'm aware of, through meditation, even through, some of us do a meditation every week on peace and nuclear protection. But there are 250 people doing it around the earth every week. And that creates this powerful, powerful matrix of intention. And it's a field. It's creating a field in which all that is peace and all that is nuclear protection can exist. And then we start interacting within that. It's a fascinating process. It's just, I think when we come out of trauma, we start looking around trying to say, well, how do I work with more than I thought was there? And one of the ways that I find really interesting is the thinking, okay, these are intelligences I'm talking to, I'm working with, I'm trying to become more present to. And they inform me. And I receive that information differently. And I'm able to work with it differently.
And I inform them.
Yes, it is. It's a back and forth. That's the difference. It's not, oh God, tell me what to do. Oh God, protect me. It's, oh, okay. And then I shift how I be and how I act in the world and in my life. It's a fascinating process.
And Electra, how we've used in-forming.
Mm-hmm.
So we're informing and we're being informed by.
Yes.
And that's the beyond trauma that this could be a really fascinating conversation. I'm thinking Tantra out beyond the edge here. My whole sentient being registers are just like.
We should invite Michael back and then jump on him and start having this conversation, because he's the one that gave us the distinctions about how the Ayurvedic system works. That it's all, we're always being informed. We're always forming. That'd be fun. I think he's up to it.
I would love that. I would love to be in that conversation.
Yeah, we'll all come on.
Yeah.
He can handle it.
I love this conversation. I've been in since last year, but coming into this year, really in doing the gathering of the collective and how important it is that we gather together to be in this. I mean, I can feel it now. I am shimmering now with the vibrancy of this conversation, right? So, and deeply embedded is observation and just using what we're observing to inform us of what we now see, and that being in the observation of ourselves, of our being, and what we're being in any given moment, and just in the observation of what we see coming is informing, and it's beginning to create this really just, I can just feel this vibrancy of color is what I'm seeing. And it's, well, the word is, I keep hearing the word vibrant. So, but it's in the gathering, uh, for me, the gathering of our collective energies and our collective gifts and strengths, that's bringing this in my creative nature, this bouquet, this new bouquet of all these new colors and new flowers, that we're each beginning to recognize in ourselves. And that's, a lot of that is coming because we are gathering together as a field. We say field beings being field, that we're gathering together and bringing our innate strengths, and as we bring those innate strengths, we're beginning to recognize those strengths in ourselves through the reflection of the others that we're being with. So that's it.
I'm going to add to
So,
that. I'm going to add two things to
yes.
that. One is that when the Institute started doing, what's it called, unpacking, the whole premise of the field of Tantra Maat is the power of a coherent field. And I'll just ask people to look it up. It'll give you enough data for understanding it. But things can happen in coherency that absolutely cannot happen in an incoherent field. Things can happen in harmony that cannot happen in an inharmonic. And that's just the truth of it. And it's non-causal. It becomes a state of existence within which you draw life from. So when the Institute started doing the unpacking, I probably would not be able to do the work I'm going to do this year. Or let me do that better. I could not do the work that I'm doing this year if there hadn't been that group of people that kept unpeeling themselves back into their direct link with creation. There's no way. There's no way. And one of the ways we talk about it, which I think is insufficient, just because we don't have language for a lot of this yet, that can translate, that can transmit. But it's very much the higher the frequency, which unfortunately we think means you're better. It doesn't mean you're better. It just means you're more coherent. And that you register the resonance of something with another in the field, with yourself, and with creation. It's just very simple. Well, it's not simple when you say it, but it is simpler than you think. And I really, this is happening in this year because I'm on the crest of the wave of now what's possible, because a small, as Barbara Marx Hubbard said, a small coherent group of people on an island can influence the entire consciousness of a world. And if you have even a small amount of coherence, it creates a field phenomenon within which others can come and be fed and nurtured and awakened. So I wanted to add that in. Thanks, Liz.
And I just want to weave in, after one Liz's and Tantra's conversation, is that a phrase we use is with another in the field. That, and one of the legacies of the United States that I think makes it difficult for people is the concept that you are an individual and it's all on your back. You know, and it's your fault if you don't have money, or it's your fault. What I've learned in being part of Liz's unpacking series is that, yes, everybody is doing their own writing of their own creation exercises and doing their own discovery, but it's in the sharing and being with each other that they start to recognize how they are interconnected with each other and how they're interconnected in the expansion. And it really felt like, and again, it goes back to my other thing, is that we have this irritation or this tightness around us, and we don't realize that there's other possibilities. And when people unpack, and these people unpacked, you start, oh, something more is possible for me. But
They actually begin to expand into their mind of creation.
Yeah.
It is a missing mind.
It is a missing mind, but you get to see it in people.
Yeah, and it can only occur in a collective. Collective belief, but collective, because the other thing about trauma is if you, and Werner Erhard did a lot of work with this. I used to assist in what they call breakthrough 6-day. And they brought children, young people that had really bad prison sentences, really bad behavior. I mean, seriously bad. And they just put them in a coherent field for 6 days. And it was radical. It's like their system forgot their reactive natures at a systemic level. So we're not talking woo-woo here. I mean, we are, but we're talking the woo-woo that works. We're actually talking about any good healer knows, heal thyself first. And then where the person comes to be with you, the odds of healing magnifies 1,000-fold. So we're talking very old principles, very old understandings that are just now being realized and lived. Go ahead, Janice.
Yeah, and I to me, when you want to get back in touch with humanity's brilliance, you look at the way that indigenous communities function, because in those indigenous communities, there that connection to nature is sacrosanct, and it's foundational to everything they do. And they they are with another in the field. Everything they do all the time is connected that way. And so a lot of this is about reclaiming the power that comes from true community, because that's what you see in those indigenous cultures. You see true community. It's where everybody is woven into the same web, and there is support and caring, and nobody is ever alone. And back to what Electra was saying about, the United States and our culture, we have an epidemic of loneliness. The research is very clear about this, and the research is very clear about the biological impacts of loneliness. And so everything we're talking about is getting people rewoven into the fabric of humanity, so that they have access to really limitless capacity for paradise.
And conversation is an access point to reweave all of us back into our humanity, the original nature of our human design, not the one that we're seeing often that is trauma-based. It's our original nature is not in the trauma-based observation.
And it's not just our trauma. It's people get an idea of who they are from how where they brought up, their family, their religion, their culture, and then they think that's real. That's the box within which they live. And the most exciting thing is when the walls of that box open up.
But it's all the environment of trauma.
Yeah, it is. It wouldn't be.
Okay. It is separate from trauma. It's the environment.
And it's what, Electra, you and Tantra were both saying a minute ago. It's the mind believes a certain reality, and you got to get the breakthrough of the mind, like you were talking about Erna Werhardt's 6-day breakthrough. That's the big piece that we remember who we are.
It's pretty exciting, actually.
And the thing is that we really do have the power to make these choices in our own lives. I mean, now, in fairness, some of us are much better resourced than others in terms of the variety of choices that that are at our disposal. But there's so many stories about people who have been in prison and the incredible transformational experience that it's been for them, because they recognize that no matter the circumstance, they could take hold of their own inner lives and decide who they were going to be in the matter. And so that's really what we are always in exploration with here and Create a World, is how we can take the reins of our own inner lives and create the worlds in which we want to live.
I did get the message last night. I was in the meditation that Electra referred to with quantum bioengineering, and I got the message that we're at a choice point, and it's really clear. Choice is yes or no, black or white. You choose, and then within those choices, there are a plethora of pathways that we can choose from, and the power is in our choice as humans, that we have that choice. And also, I see in energetic streams, and I learned last night that there's, it's like when you're in a hurricane, the calm is in the eye of the storm. When you're on this huge waft of, like a wave of energy, because everything is energy, when you're in the middle of that, that's where that calm is. And you can choose for yourself. And in that choice is the power, lies the power. So you're empowered to move ahead. And it's all about you. That's what I love. It's here's a chance for us to say, this was me. This is me as a human being making these vibrant life choices.
A long,
So it's
a
pretty
long
exciting.
time. Yeah, a
Not
long
relying
time
on someone
ago.
else.
Sorry, Liz, I didn't
Okay.
mean to step on you.
It's okay. It's okay.
A long time ago, because I've been doing obviously psychic readings since I was 19 for pay. I did them a long time before then, but not with. I only did it once with my mother, and that ended. I was never going to do that one again. But one of the things I learned early on is that if a person gets awake, they can choose, and there is no choice unless you can get awake to choice. And of course, what keeps us from being awake to choice is mostly fear of harm, fear we won't belong. And now that's being pushed like it reminds me of the mountains here, the mountains here in the Sandias. They didn't go up like this. They went like this because there were volcanoes. The mountains are built by the volcanic eruption. And that's the power we can lean into right now, is that we can lean into that there is a real possibility for awakening now. All our social structures are failing. All our points of view are either we're going to just sound like robots repeating ourselves 1,000 times, or we're going to consider that we might not want to be standing there anymore. We might consider another possibility. The other thing that still gets left out in conversation, it's just an evolutionary aspect. And that's why I wanted to do Create a World, as we say, pretty people-centric here. But going back to what Victoria and Electra are talking about, but we are influenced by powers and forces greater than ourselves. We are influenced by what's happening on the earth. We are influenced by solar sparks. We are influenced by consciousnesses that, I can't remember who said it, consciousnesses that have gone dormant. So we're not waking up like a little stick figure bouncing around. And that's the indigenous and aborigines people know. Little stick people running around on a dead world. We're actually being forced into awakening. We're being forced into choice. And I remember doing that beloved thing a while back, and it was just so clear that can we be responsible for? We're being evolved, and we don't have choice. But in that choice, we have a choice. In that evolution, we have a choice to get on the side of it and to learn new information, to see if everything we thought the day before is still relevant to our lives, to move out of concepts that no longer, as Electra said, fill the bucket, only give a drop of water that's barely takes care of our thirst. So this is an extraordinary time. And it's amazing to come into 2024 with this undercurrent, really almost like a, what do you call it? Oh, what's the undercurrent that pulls you down?
Undertow.
Undertow.
It's like an undertow. It really honestly is, because all sorts of not fun things in the circumstantial world are going to happen this year. So I find it fascinating that it doesn't, in one level, it doesn't matter because there's this undertow pulling us down under into ourselves and emerging us out into someplace new. And I don't know if anybody's ever been in an undertow. There's a great one, Victoria, I'll take you to and tell us, because it actually sucks you all the way down. And Big Ben too. It sucks you all the way down and then spits you back up. My daughter did it when she was 3 years old. Scared the living pants off of us. And repeatedly, I might add. And but it's like that now. We're being sucked down into the evolutionary path, regardless of circumstance, regardless of world events. They really honestly don't matter now, because things go out of existence. As things are coming into existence, we don't have much say over what's going out of existence because we've reached epicenter. We have a lot of say about what comes into existence and the debris of it.
The thought that's coming to me is that it is in the safety of the group where you can fall into the arms of others, and you know that you're always part of a greater whole, that you can open up to what this undertow that's taking us. I think so many times people think, well, it's just up to me, and so you can't fall back and relax into another force. You almost get into I've got to fight. And that's just what I'm feeling like. I would say to everybody, find coherent groups that you can be part of. Join the Institute, join the field of Tantra Maat if you don't have other groups. It's how you are safe enough and held enough that you can explore your being more.
Lori?
The visualization when you were speaking about the undertow kind of correlates with what Liz was saying about the eye of the center. Like, I totally saw it, like, go to the depths of your being, and be in that stillness of all that is. And from there, you rise with vibrancy. I mean, I had such a clear, visceral, potent experience when you were talking about the undertow. It's like it can be a blueprint of like, what's the calculated risk? What's the grounded risk of going in? Wow. Expansive awesomeness. And find the communities. I agree with Electra. Join this community. Find the communities that support you in that celebration of life. We are all life, no matter the traumas, no matter the illnesses, the injuries, the blah of life. We are all vibrantly like shining lights. So tap into that.
I'm going to read from the chat. I think it's worth it. I won't say the person's name because I don't have permission. But they said recent trauma work has introduced this idea of the intelligences that support us, such as emotions. And it's been such an opening and powerful realization in the ways we make space in our being so there can be movement. And then keeping going, resonating, something someone said, I'm in the middle of a big unexpected trauma event. And it takes me down a lot, but at times I find myself just feeling clear and curious and enamored with life, a bit blissful. And it's kind of a new experience. Whoops, somebody started writing. It's kind of a new experience because traditionally in teams, the safety place felt like staying in the trauma in the arms of the octopus. So I'm intrigued in watching myself be happy. When I feel like I shouldn't be able to be there, there it is happening to and within me. And then, you were basically saying what I was typing as I was typing, and I can share her name. It's Lisa Bonnieberry. Thank you, Lisa.
It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I've repurposed being in the soup. That's a term, we've always talked about, and now it's a happy soup. And right now we want to be in the soup because, soup, some of us, yes, we just have broth, right? I like soups with all kinds of stuff in them, collective soup. So being in the soup together right now is important, and it's really nourishing, right? With all those veggies thrown in there.
I'm really struck by the share because it brought me to a remembrance of a summer when I was called upon to do a deep dive while my teenage son was being a teenager. And I was feeling all the worries and all the sadnesses and all the loss of the circumstance of his teenage years. I was also in my deep exploration of yoga practice and becoming more connected to myself. So I had this both end of sadness and sorrows and overwhelm, ecstatic joys of my own internal experiences. And I called it my year of joyful sorrows. And it was a full year of it and in navigating. And I just feel like a lot of people are in this navigation moment in life and may or may not recognize that it's both, and that it's upon us. The choice is to choose the reality of being in the both. And Liz, I go back to the word that you brought in, that we're shimmering. And Tantra, we're all like shimmering on this little island to like feed the light to the whole planet. And that's for me what's happening in coming into sacred circles or communities and finding them, that this is what it doesn't matter if you're in the both end of sorrowful, joyous life. We all are, right? So celebrate. Let's celebrate.
We have about 4 more minutes. Anybody want to wrap it up? I just don't know how or I would.
Well, I think what Victoria had to say about, the being in the both and, I mean, that is the nature of life, and human existence. And we only understand joy because we've experienced sorrow. If everything stayed the same all the time, we'd be pretty boring individuals without a lot to say about anything. And so it's everything that we're talking about. It's so recognizing that there we are, that we are in this evolutionary moment, that in this evolutionary moment, there's the opportunity for choice. And to recognize that we can ride the wave or we can get pulled down by the undertow. And what it takes to ride a wave is to be flexible and fluid.
And we can ride the wave and get pulled down in the undertow, and whether we like it or not, we'll still evolve.
Right.
We just get choice about how we do the journey.
Right. Because with the undertow, when you don't fight it, you get boosted to the surface. So, and recognizing that human beings are designed to have a full emotional palette. And so that when you experience emotions like sadness or anger or fear, again, it's not an indication that you are broken or that something is wrong. It is guidance for you on this evolutionary journey that you're making. And a way to be able to stay in touch with all of that is to be in community with other people who can witness you. Because the reality is most of us are far kinder in our conversation to other people than we are in our conversations with ourselves. And so when you can be with people who hold you and who hold the fullness of who you can be with you, miracles can happen.
And on that note, are we complete? Thanks for joining us.